Hey, my Outis correction gang. Limbus Company is a game that is made by the most unhinged company known to man, Project Moon. They're founded in South Korea, like most of your generic romance manhwa. They're known for their other games, such as Lobotomy Corp and Library of Ruina, which are popular amongst the community. They've slowly developed a community of unhinged people, and I'm slowly becoming one of them. This video is mainly made for the people who want to dip their feet into Limbus Company and the Project Moon universe. However, if you want to hear my bad takes and correct me throughout this video about how I misexplain everything, you're more than welcome to stay. I'll mainly be talking about the art style, the combat, the gacha system, and the story, but only like a brief summary of the story. Since I plan on actually making a review video on it, a long one at that. By the way, the script for that video is like 5 pages long in a Word document, and I'm still at the prologue trying to explain every detail for why Molar Boatwork Ishmael is the best smelling ID to why the I used Mariachi St. Clair for the whole of Canto 1. With my rant being out of the way, let's get into Limbus Company. As I said, this is gonna be a brief summary of the story since this story actually has so much to it that me explaining in this video won't actually do it justice. You, the player, or the main character of this game, is called Dante, a clocked-faced character. You've been adopted by the best dad of the year, Virgilus, who has 13 other kids known as the Sinners. They are Gregor, Rodion, or Rodia, Sinclair, Yisang, Ishmael, Heathcliff, Don Quixote, Honglu, Ryoshu, Mersault, Outis, my beloved, and Faust. These characters are all based on real-life books, stories, and authors. Dante, based on the infamous book Dante's Inferno, and Don Quixote from, well, Don Quixote. Virgilus has kidnapped all of you people in a bus called Mephi, or Mephistopheles. You are also joined by a driver on the bus called Charon, ironic because Charon is like the god of death that traverses the sea, who has a sense of the direction of a 5-year-old rubbing their face on Markiplier's pecs. Since Virgilus pretty much is the boss of the group, his order is simple. Each canto, or chapters, you will be visiting an area reminiscent for certain sinners to retrieve the golden bough. By the way, since I was streaming this game, even the people who are at the very late stages of the game don't even know what the golden bough still is. So thankfully I don't have to explain it. For example, in Canto 1, you visit a place that is close and dear to Gregor. So you'll be learning more about himself and following through the gruesomeness of what he went through. I'm not gonna be spoiling anything about it because I want you to experience the story for yourself. I highly recommend just playing the game if you want to experience the story. I might as well give you my thoughts on it, but I think Canto 1 to 3 have been amazing, especially Canto 3 due to a certain someone that I will not spoil. I think Canto 3 is what sparked me to make a video on this, considering how interesting it was and how well thought out it was. And again, as I said, I do want to make a long form video on this that's gonna be probably 10 hours long, but it's something worth doing because I think it really deserves it. This game, definitely amazing. So yeah, if you want to learn about the story more, I suggest you play on your own and give it a shot. The game's art style is not something you see typically in most gacha games, since today's gacha games are mainly just who can make the most oversized tits for their characters so they can promote it in a summer event. This game's art style reminds me a lot about Darkest Dungeon and the gameplay as well, but we'll get to it later. The game has this very rustic style when the world wars were taking place in the 20th century, almost like if there was actually a war that took place in the game as well. I know this art style won't be for everyone since you don't see it every day. I, however, found myself falling in love with it because most of the character designs are unique. Most enemy designs are pretty generic, I'd say, but done in a way that it feels like it belongs in the world. And some areas that you see in the background of the cutscenes also fit the world they built really well. The IDs, or characters, that you will be pulling from the gacha system all have their own flair to it and are mainly based on character personality, which, makes sense. Overall, for the art style, it just hits for me. It just hits on the spot for me, and I'm a big fan of the rustic style that they have, and the way that each little detail of the world applies to it is just perfect. Now for the gameplay. Where do I even begin? There's a lot to the core gameplay for the game, such as debuffs, statuses, buffs, but don't panic, I got you covered on this. So what you do is, once you unlock the win rate button, you just keep spamming that a bunch of time. You'll essentially get through every single content that way. That's pretty much the gameplay. Every single combat, you can only bring 5 characters, in some cases 6. Each characters have skills that are shown in the sequence here. In normal encounters, like this, you have to chain skills and pick which skill you want to use. You can click the character in combat and see what they do. I recommend just reading on them when you choose which character you want to bring to the battle, because some of them are just a size of like 5 Yu-Gi-Oh cards combined. Each time you use a skill for the combat, it will automatically get replaced by another skill that you can see. So it's best to know what you want to use now so that you can play around the next upcoming skill. Now, there is a resonance mechanic where if you pair up skills of the same color, it gives you a bonus of some sort. To be completely honest, it really doesn't do much, so I say just forget about it. By the way, the colors of the skill themselves do matter in some cases, but it really depends on what your character does most of the time. I should mention, when choosing characters you want to play, you should actually place them in a certain order, because this is actually really important. When you enter battle and you've done your first turn, the character you chose first, which allows like another skill to be used, and that is pretty massive for a character that wants to like attack a lot. Now for how damage is calculated, it is based on coin flips. Yes, even gambling for characters wasn't enough. They legit had to implement gambling to the combat out of all things. So for each skill, they will have a maximum and a minimum damage they can apply. And they will also have a certain amount of coins. Now, when I said the combat is very similar to Darkest Dungeon, I really meant it. It's also very comparable to another game that has been getting popularity recently, known as Fear and Hunger. If you played those games before, the combat should be simple enough for you knowing what the coins actually mean and do. For the people who don't know, basically, your damage will be calculated based on how many coins land on heads and if you land on tails. You'll be dealing the bare minimum of damage if you hit all tails. Hitting all heads, you will be doing the max amount of damage. Hitting, let's say, 2/3 of your coins will still damage the enemy, but obviously calculate between the ratio you have. The clash mechanic that you will be experiencing a lot is much more different, however. A clash is triggered usually when both one of your units and an enemy is attacking at the same time. On top of that, it usually tells you which one will be favored. You will either get a favored, neutral, struggling, and other variations. Favored usually means that you will most likely win the clash. The way they do clash is, each time both sides will flip the amount of coins they have. If one side lose their flip, they will lose 1 coin until they have none. Once there is no coins left, the unit who lost will lose their ability to attack, while the winner of the clash gets to deal damage. There is also a sanity measurement. This mechanic is important to keep track of because of the range of sanity you can get. Usually the range varies from -45 to 45 sanity. The higher your sanity, the more heads you will land with your attacks. The way you gain sanity is also simple. Attacking enemies gives you sanity, and killing off enemies will give you even more sanity. Another great tool you have at your disposal is that if you see you're most likely to lose a clash, you can just click on your character and defend yourself instead. For each character, it's usually different. It's either a defense, counter, or dodge. This defense mechanic can also give you bonuses sometimes for some characters, and it's pretty beneficial to use. Enemies on their health bar have lines on certain points. Reaching those points causes them to be at a staggered state, which basically means that they will be stunned and won't be able to attack or defend. So they full on take the maximum damage you can output, if you land your heads, of course. There's also a speed mechanic where characters are rearranged every turn to see who gets to go first. Characters who are placed on the far left are usually most likely to get attacked. The same is true for the enemy side. Another form of combat that appears is focused encounters. Unlike the normal ones that I've shown you throughout the footage, in focused encounters, it's mainly just clashes constantly, and you actually don't gain additional skill slot after each turn. So it's actually just harder in general, and you have to manage your skills properly. Finally, with that comes dungeons. Dungeons usually appear at the end of each canto, usually being an hour or 2 long, so I suggest being mentally ready. Usually in these, there will be mini encounters against enemies along with story dialogue, with you receiving ego gifts, which are permanent buffs throughout the whole dungeon. There's also encounters with question marks on them that usually forces you to run checks to gain either more ego gifts, items, or buffs. to help you out through the dungeon. The game usually tells you which character is more suitable to run these checks. These checks also apply in some cases battles you'll be doing throughout the dungeon, mainly boss checkpoints. With that, yeah, the combat segment is done. I know I talked a lot about it, but I think this is as brief as I can get. If you actually want to learn what each status and buffs do, there's usually plenty of channels who cover that kind of stuff. I don't personally have any recommendation. I'd say you find them for yourselves. Even the game itself and the wiki explains what these effects do, so don't be afraid to read up on them. Or if you're a lazy ass that doesn't want to read up on it and will press win rate to win, it'll get you through the earlier stages, but don't be surprised when you lose eventually. Now this is what I praise the game for. There is no artifact system in this game. None. Zero. They actually managed to make an enjoyable game without prioritizing crit rate and crit damage. People meme on Project Moon for not knowing how to make gacha games, which is true to some extent, but their lack of understanding actually made this game so much better. So 12 sinners, right? So how do you get more characters? Well, you don't. You gain variations of these characters instead. Earlier I mentioned two specific IDs like Molar Boatwork Ishmael and Mariachi Sinclair. Those are specific IDs that these characters can get. There's really only 3 rarities in this game. The normal regular IDs that, the default ones, 00 and 000, which is the best you can get. In normal gacha terms, 00s are basically 4 stars and 000s are 5 stars. These IDs have different skills and mechanics and have to be leveled separately. If level transferring was actually a mechanic in the game, it would just be too easy. However, IDs aren't the only form of gacha you can get. There's also egos that you can get. Another common mechanic that I forgot to add in the combat section. Great, just great. Essentially, egos are ultimates that characters can use for a cost of sanity and affinities. What are affinities? Well, remember how I said that the colors of your skills matter? Yeah, now is a good time to talk about it. Each skill gives you a certain amount of affinities of the colored skill you used. These will stay until the end of combat unless you're doing dungeons, which stays till the end of the dungeon. But yeah, egos either do a lot of damage, give you permanent buffs, or a good utility for your team. Now there's more to the IDs actually. There's a form of ascension in this game called uptie. Usually, a character can be uptied to a maximum of 4, where at uptie 3, they unlock their quote-unquote final form, and at uptie 4, gaining a huge buff on all their skills. Uptying requires a resource called DreadZ that is either usually obtained from pulling, like from the banner, or from events. You can also buy them from the shop as well by selling character-specific threads that you don't think you'll need. By the way, I personally didn't have any other use for the shop. You can buy other IDs and egos for different types of currency, and that's the extent that I know of it. But please, leave a comment if you know the full use of the shop, and that would be appreciated. Now, what if you pulled for a character but are too poor to level them up? Well, now here's the gacha aspect you all have been waiting for. Enkephalin is essentially this game's resin energy source to get materials for leveling your characters and actually getting different types of threads. Yeah, if you played a singular gacha game in your life, it's pretty self-explanatory. Enkephalin must be condensed to enkephalin modules to be used for material farming. I wouldn't advise ever skipping the battle. Usually playing the game and pressing win rate will do the trick, so you save more resources to gain more materials. I should also mention that the story nodes will also cost enkephalin. Usually that won't be a problem in most cases, while dungeons only consume 1 enkephalin. Last thing that I'll be talking about here is mirror dungeons. The reason why I'm talking about mirror dungeons here is because I actually haven't tried it yet, but they're essentially like dungeons from the combat segment, just with, shops and more ego gifts. Leveling up ego gifts too, if you want to, and having a boss at the end of each area. In Honkai Star Rail terms, they're essentially the simulated universe. Yeah, this is the end of the video. Again, if I missed anything really important, please let me know down in the comments, and like the comments of the person that said the important thing. And if I think I forgot anything, I also put a pinned comment below. To be honest, I really don't know what to expect from this game. As I said, the story has really captivated me right now, and after finishing Kanto 3, my passion for the game has grown a lot more because I want to see now what happens like in the later cantos, and just see how the story, you know, grows through, you know, all the cantos. And me streaming this game over here on the channel and on Twitch has my channel like grow a lot, and even the community being very welcoming, which is, in my opinion, makes it like all the worthwhile talking about it. And you know, like the chat and stuff, making it more better, like it makes the experience better for sure. I also put a download link for the game, and like the game is completely free. You don't need to pay anything. Like you should definitely give it a shot since, you know, it's free. Like there's nothing wrong with that. I may sound like a sponsor show, but I'm literally not. I'm not sponsored by them at all. I generally think that the devs put a lot of passion into the game and made an amazing product for everyone to consume. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, as it helps this channel out a lot. Follow me on Twitch as I stream over there and here on this channel. I'll continue to suffer and make the script for the lore of the game, even if the video will be like 10 hours long. But yeah, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
고통 속에서 깨어나게